Thank you all for coming. Real excited to have Ben Hruska here this evening for the second Tuesday talk of the 2023 season. BIMI's mission is to provide educational experiences and hands-on exploration to inspire appreciation of the extraordinary saltwater environment around Block Island. Our Tuesday talks represent one of our educational experiences, and these are free of charge. So if you support BIMI's mission or you support our programs, please consider making a donation tonight or online. And we would like to recognize Jessica Ranowski and Deadeye Dix, who for this entire season will provide us with a pre-talk dinner. Tonight will actually be a post-talk dinner, but that's because we had an event here. So we really appreciate what Deadeyes is doing to support this program. Tonight we're pleased, as I said before, to welcome Ben Hruska, historian and author, who is the collections administrator for the Block Island Historical Society. He will offer us a fascinating look at our island from the 50s and 60s. A few of you were maybe here then, and you can offer your own insights as well as his in a little more color, I'm sure. We are so happy to have Dr. Ben Hruska here. Give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me in the back? We good? Okay, great. What's cycling through here is what I was doing all winter with some volunteers. I want to thank Pamela Littlefield-Gassner. Before she retired, she secured an Annenberg Foundation grant, which secured $60,000 of funding to digitize our collection. Each image you're seeing here is one of 20 or maybe one of even 200. So this is just a taste. Here you see, a boat full of ice. Fred Benson got a great collection of his stuff. Swift from Indiana, some great letters from Otis Mott to his wife. Joe Giglietti also built some handcrafted models that you can see at the Historical Society. Gladys Stedman, of course. Helen Mansfield. A tag that would have been on the New Shoreham, which was a ferry vessel. John Hapgood, thanks to Carol Brown for this. I met Catherine when she was 90 and she scared me, so. We just got this Leslie Dodge collection. Anybody in Troop 30? Boy Scouts, Block Island Troop 30? There he is, we need to talk. Okay. We just got this last week, Omar Littlefield collection from John Wallum. Leo's Tack Shack, that's right there. Tripler family collection, that's Lewis Farm, 1920. Aldrich and B. Sear collection. O'Neill collection had a lot of pictures of the Ocean View fire from a different angle I'd never seen. Babies on Baby Beach, 1903, that's pretty cool. Repairing Rebecca. I want to thank Bill and Marjorie Cummings. Absolutely fantastic collection they gave us. Again, you can give a lot of different ways. You can give us a photo, a letter, we scan it, and then we keep it forever. Or you can do what the Cummings decided to do, which is trust us with that. We scan it, we put it in our catalog software, and then we return it to you. But then we have that scanned, we got it saved, and from what I understand, it's up in 2 different clouds, so it's safe. I'm not sure what that means. National Hotel Employees, 1930. Those guys that have ice axes and they're trying to knock off the ice. Fred Benson. And we got a few objects too. I like Fred Benson's bat. And we got Fred Benson's golf club too. So we'll talk about this here in a minute. So, in terms of my presentation tonight, looking at Reluctant Paradise, again, that's the exhibit that we're doing this summer at the Historical Society. This talk tonight is going to be more kind of looking at a theory of how I came up with this concept. This is a great shot, 1961, from the Elizabeth Ann Evans collection. Next Thursday, I'm going to be doing a talk at the Historical Society. That's going to be a little bit more nuts and bolts. And the reason I decided to do that is that you're going to be in the West Gallery on Thursday. I'll be talking about a piece of glass that melted in the Ocean View fire, and then you can turn around and see it, as opposed to me talking about objects that aren't here. Okay, so a little bit more of a theory talk today, but there will be another talk next Thursday, the 20th at 7 p.m. at the Historical Society. Same topic, but a little bit more of a nuts and bolts. Okay, I got a PhD, so you got to talk theory a little bit. Sorry. So the theory of this, talking to Keith Lang and researching travel articles from the 50s and 60s, I keep seeing this word discovered, discovered, discovered. How many times can a place be discovered? Everyone talks about in the 50s and 60s, no one knew about Block Island, but it's in the New York Times. My hometown of Dodge City is not in the New York Times in 1950 or 1960. So overall theory is that Block Island was discovered 4 times. The first time, the indigenous inhabitants, so the Manaceans. The second time, discovery by Verrazano, even though people have been here for millennia. Third discovery, 1840s, 1850s. The idea of people are starting to realize that with industrialization going on in New England, places that are quiet, places that are not having epidemics, places that are not smoky are starting to be nice, and they're getting fewer and fewer. By the 1870s, we know once you have Old Harbor built, the tourism will take off. I'm coming up around 1930 to 1970, we're in a bit of a hibernation. Then there's a 4th discovery, and I more than welcome a conversation after this of when this happened. With interviews that I've done, I've heard people tell me the Manitou, when that came online in 1970. I've heard the sewer system. I've heard septic systems. There's a lot of different ways, but I found a couple nuggets here that I think definitely show a trend. I want to give a huge shout out to the Block Island Residents Association. Detailed knowledge from 1972 up until the 1980s. If you look at their very first article, very first issue, October of 72, you're seeing a 62% increase in electricity use in 5 years. There's something going on there. So basically, again, judging by 1960, looking at 1967, 1968, looking at 1972, there's a 62% increase in electricity use on the island. In terms of flights, from 1976 to 1972, a 73% increase in flights. So I'm thinking that the 4th discovery happened in that time frame. That's my overall theory that I'm working for on a book right now. If you have any thoughts, agree, disagree, please let me know. Maybe it's not one single thing, but we definitely are seeing 2 large numbers go up. In terms of theory, how we came up with this topic of this exhibit, last summer we were cataloging, and I kept seeing a lot of things from the late 1940s, 1950s, and I walked through the Historical Society and I counted 8 things that were after World War II, clearly after World War II. And realizing that in 1942, when the people that founded our organization wanted to save the history of the island they wanted to save was the golden era, the 1890s, the 1900s, the 1910s, when tourism was at its golden age of Block Island. And I thought, well, maybe we can push the envelope a little bit for a couple reasons. One, people still remember this and we can get their stories. I mean, I love the 1880s and 1870s, but nobody remembers those. So we can still get these stories. This is Elizabeth Ann Evans. I love this picture. It's so Block Island, the idea of I need a cane to get around, but I need to trim these weeds. So I'm gonna have my granddaughter hold the cane while I go work on the field there. Also from the Elizabeth Ann Evans collection. Thanks to Tristan Payne. I showed him this and he goes, that's a toilet going in, not going out. Because they're very fancy shoes. And with Martha Ball's help, I finally tracked down where this house is at, up on Center Road. Elizabeth Ann Evans, so a little bit of background on that. Her father was Billy Clay Evans. He met his wife on the ferry that he was working on. She was a Mott. they named their daughter after the ferry vessel that they met on, the Elizabeth Ann. And we have a picture of that right here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Does anybody raise their hands? Who was on the Elizabeth Ann? Whoever wrote it? 1951, 1952, I think it burned. So planks, obviously not OSHA approved here. Just backing a car off the ferry with Patrick. They do this back in your day? Okay, we can ask Patrick too. So very interesting. Elizabeth Ann Evans and friends. I had an article a few months ago just talking about, what did kids do before we worship glowing rectangles? Before SpongeBob, before video games, what did kids do? I mean, they just made fun out of a sawhorse, which is pretty cool. I'd like to thank Shirlene on our board. She gave us a great collection connected to Leslie Dodge Slate. Thank you, David. David identified this as from Troop 30, great teepee that the Boy Scouts would camp in, with the block island on the side, of course. Leslie Slate, great collection because it's showing a lot of camping on Lewis Farm, also camping on the mainland that I've yet to identify, but then also a lot of different images from Bridgegate Square. So we're having a Bridgegate Square over time, which is pretty neat. This is the U.S. or the Life Saving Service building that was near Rebecca, 1964, I think. It looks like the Block Island Club wanted to move that up to the north side of the pond, so they had to move it through Bridgegate Square. And then eventually, from what I understand, Mystic contacted them saying, hey, how about we build you a replica, and then we'll switch buildings. The Historical Society there in the background. A great shot's from on top of the Historical Society. So the post office, the old post office, opened 1964, but you can see behind it, they are leveling the ground to make what I would call Sharkies. I'm not sure what you called it in the 70s. But across in front of that would be the yellow kittens. Nancy Ann Church collection. I got an email from a retired Canadian Mountie saying my aunt worked on Block Island in the 1940s. We got a few things. Would you like it? Absolutely. I'm expecting an envelope. I don't know what I was expecting. And I get a catalog or a scrapbook that's the best scrapbook I've ever seen. Everybody is named. So if you please take anything away from this, if you want people in your family to know who's on the picture, grandma's not going to work, okay? So please put the names on there if you want people to know who they are. This is Nancy Ann Church, 1952. She was the only female barker on Block Island. Before I get canceled, I'll tell you what a barker is. A barker is someone that would drive from the Spring House or another institution, go down to New Harbor, and then yell, Spring House, Spring House, Spring House, and then take you to that particular place. And then a little news clip. I just scanned this today, actually. She worked at the West Hillcrest. Where was that? Is that on the west side, I take it? Okay, thank you. In that collection is this image. This was her mother's house, the view from her mother's house to the north along Spring Street, looking toward the cupola there would be the Spring House. So great, great color shots from 1958. Again, labeling everybody. Officer Bunty. I've heard about him. Edie Blaine told me about him. It's just nice to have a picture. And again, a lot of the images that we have in our collection are just scans that we don't know who these people are. Maybe they're a law enforcement personnel. We know it's 1955, but we don't know who it is. Having the name on one of these images allows us to connect the dots. Martha Ball informed me this was Gertrude Mott. It was only labeled Mrs. Mott at the Ann Rose Gift Shop, which is a building that was moved, but it was fairly close to Rebecca from what I gather. Postcards out front. Walt Littlefield at the Bob White postcard shop. Anybody remember the Bob White postcard shop? We got to talk. We're going to be talking. We're going to have a couple conversations. I do. Aaron Mitchell. I mean, I don't have kids, but with today's helicopter parents, I mean, this just looks like a death trap, doesn't it? I mean, and again, she's taking pictures of locals. She's taking pictures of people that she worked with, and she's writing all the names down, which is fantastic. So why am I telling you this? All this is based on trust. At the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. For 81 years, people have been trusting us with their things. Now, thanks with the Annenberg Foundation, that trust includes a digital donation, which again, you give me a box of things, I get that scanned within 4 to 5 days. I return that to you. We sit down together, and you tell me who's who, what's what, and then it's stored up there again in the cloud somewhere. But again, I look at all these collections as just one layer of paint. And if you do that for 81 years, you have a pretty solid foundation. The green pyramid is kind of where we're at now. The idea of our exhibit or what we're going to do next year or a cemetery tour, all that is built on a foundation of trust. On that foundation of trust is Catherine Champlin. I love this picture. I used to go to Soup Group 15 years ago. You're normally not intimidated by a 92-year-old, but I was. And then I saw this picture. I'm going, yeah, that's a Catherine Champlin I remember. But in Catherine Champlin's collection that she left us was this image, which is the dedication of the World War II memorial at Legion Park. I was hoping that it might be the first World War II memorial in the state of Rhode Island. It was not. They dedicated one in 1944 in Smithfield, which I thought, how do you dedicate a memorial before the war is over? So 1953, color shot. I want to thank Edie Blaine. Edie Blaine, I wish my students during COVID checked their email as much as Edie Blaine does. Because I could send this picture to Edie in the winter, and she would just send me a great vignette of what's going on. And what's cool is I can take that email that she sends me, copy it, and then put that with the catalog. So these two things I'm about to show you are in this catalog. Things that I'm not going to notice. Quote, Edie Blaine, note all the men have white foreheads as most wore caps. I'm not going to see that. She identified everybody but the last guy. So the last one is from the mainland, as no Block Islander would be seen in a coat like that. So that got me thinking, I'm working on this theory that we'll work together. We're going to have a problem together. This idea of it's a picture from 1955. Can we just look at what the people are wearing and tell if they're a Block Islander or not? Okay, so that's the game we're playing here. So in the Catherine Champlin collection, Catherine Champlin did not say this, okay, but in the Catherine Champlin collection was a newspaper clipping. Unfortunately, I don't know what it was because the top was cut off, but there was this great quote that I found. The time may come when it will be impossible to tell a Block Islander from any other citizen of these United States. This time is not yet, and those of us who love this island hope that it never will come. Great shot, color, 1958 Payne's Dock. And again, label, which I can show you later. So that got me thinking, what does a Block Islander look like? Well, 1956, Las Vegas decided, okay, we need someone to symbolize, we need something to personify Las Vegas. So they come and they hang out with us and they spend their money and do all kinds of stuff. And they came up with Vegas Vic. So that's Vegas Vic. In 1953 through 1970, motions were made at Providence at the state capitol to legalize gambling on Block Island. Idea was they were going to turn it into a miniature Nevada. Quote. The odds of this happening were very, very thin. But I think people in Atlantic City probably saw the same thing. And that attitude changed pretty quickly around 1974, 1975. So in this editorial cartoon, we have Vegas Vic saying, hey, Rube, you know, this is the Las Vegas way of life, and Block Island is. A gentleman with long hair, a beard, a long billed hat on Block Island doing the big thumbs down, no by Ginger. And if you're interested in the gambling or the Harvard study, they had 1952, just to backtrack a little bit, in 1952, 90 Harvard students came out. The assignment was, you get Block Island, you can build whatever you want. One of the designs was a mile-long hotel on Crescent Beach, 10,000 guests. This obviously wasn't based in reality, but that will be highlighted on my next talk on Thursday. So what's cool about this software that we have, again, from the Annenberg Foundation, catalog it. We're knocking on 9,000 entries. This is a screenshot. Up on the, we can search anything you want. So if you're a member of the Dunn family and you're interested in the Dunns, you come in, we search Dunns. Anything connected to the Dunns will come up. If you're like Patrick and you worked on the Quonset, we can search Quonset, and any picture or document related to the Quonset will come up. So if I search Block Island hat, this one comes up. And I want to thank John Wallum. John Wallum reached out about 2 weeks ago saying, I live on 555 Center Road. A colorful character named Omar Littlefield lived in this building. Would you be interested in anything that we have? And I said yes. So, but the long billed hat has been entered into the metadata, so that will pop up. And we have a couple of other objects here from Omar that I'll talk about in a minute. Long billed hat will also show you this picture. Elizabeth Ann Evans with the Block Island hat. I used that term and Martha Ball corrected me. She goes, there is no such thing, but I'm gonna invent it, okay? The long billed Block Island hat on backwards at Payne's Dock, waiting for probably her dad. I mean, her dad was the captain on a number of different vessels. From the Nancy Church collection, again, this is from the retired Canadian Mountie. His aunt worked on Block Island. This is an interior shot, 1950, of the bar at the Royal. Tourists aren't taking pictures like this. And locals certainly aren't. So it's kind of unique that, ironic, that the best album that I've found so far, and other albums too, seem to be people who are here for a limited time and they know they only have 50 or 60 days of summer, and they're documented. And probably, they're not married. They probably have a little extra coin in their pocket in the 50s and 60s. They can have a camera, but a great, great shot there. But if you look in the back right, what do you see? Long billed hat. And I did that circle. These circles were there. They took a pen, they showed up like that. So they got a pencil, and now we know that the bartenders that day were Bert and Joe. And then Jones was there too. Or give me Bones, excuse me. So what's the theory? In China, I learned this thing called check for understanding to make sure everyone knows you. George, what's the theory about Block Island pictures? We can take a picture from the 50s and what? You can label it. Yes, look for something that's a Block Islander or not. So let's test this theory. This is from the Les Slate collection. So who's a Block Islander, who's not? If you think that's an islander, raise your hand. You are correct. Bill Phelan. If you think that's a mainlander, raise your hand. Anybody recognize this gentleman? He was a human being before he was an airport. There he is with Lyndon Johnson. So great, there's a great series of shots you can see on the Smithsonian website of Lyndon Johnson apparently trying to convince Mr. Green or Senator Green to do something that he didn't want to do, and Senator Green just keeps going backwards and backwards and backwards. So here's the test of the theory. Block Islander or mainlander? I don't know. I'm going with mainlander. I think it might be the governor. I need to Google who was the governor in the 1950s. But judging by that coat, I would say that's probably a mainlander. So show of hands. Again, I'm a flatlander. I'm from Dodge City. I was born in 1976. This is your history. This is not mine. At best, I'm a carpetbagger. But who was on Block Island at all between 1950 and 1970? Either worked here, you visited for a day, you went to school. Okay? Who was on Block Island between 1950 and 1970 and had a job? Getting pretty thin here, but we got a few. Who was in the Block Island school between 1950 and 1970? Any grade? Who's in the Block Island yearbook? I got a question for you, David. Were there rules out here? Because I'm seeing pictures where it looked like it was kind of like the Wild West. So, turning the Quonset into your own personal balance beam. That's kind of cool. 1965. I'm saying this because I was jealous. It must have been an amazing place to be. On top of a World War II fortification. There were a number of these around the island. I don't know exactly which one this is, but these kids are on top of that. As a former educator, I can tell you this picture would be lawsuits and emails and, you know, sensitivity training and all kinds of stuff. But they're having a good time at the school. Anybody recognize these characters? All right. Well, we'll talk later. I don't want to. From the Les Lake collection, Troop 30. These might be Boy Scouts that are visiting Block Island. But I mean, I think we're breaking child labor laws. Look how much stuff this kid's carrying. I mean, it looks like he's going up Mount Everest. How much stuff do you need for, 3-4 days on Block Island? What's even more scary, I mean, at least from my point of view, is, I mean, look at that. And if you're interested in one of these ever, had an incident, talk to Mr. Cobb there. He's got a great story of how one shot down the dock one time. I mean, I like to think this kid's standing on something, but is he? I mean, they're just dangling him over the cliffs. I mean, he looks like he's smiling a little bit. I don't know. Okay, I was in high school in the 90s. I made some interesting fashion decisions and hair selections, hairstyle selections. So I bleeped this person's face out. But these pants, I mean, this is like an optical illusion or something. You think this is the school, David? Martha Ball thinks this is the school. They had a dance at the school, and someone's wearing these very interesting pants. They got a piñata as well. You got to have a piñata. So again, all this is built on a foundation of trust. If we don't have trust, you can have a great exhibition staff, you can have a huge endowment, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the trust of the community, as a local museum, you're not going to last very long. So I want to thank John Wallen, who again had the house that Omar Littlefield owned. This is a boogie board. Feel free to pick this up, made out of balsa. I mean, if you think this is foam and you pick it up, it's pretty heavy. But imagine what it would be like if it was oak. When I saw this in a barn, I thought this was an archery target because I was just seeing this. John Lehman, thank you so much. He gave us information on this maritime radio, which I'm not saying right, but he'll correct me, I'm sure. But a device that you would tune into, say you're 40 miles out fishing, you tune into a lighthouse or something in Newport, and then you dial it in, and then you go to your destination. The Elizabeth Ann photo. So there's a gentleman buried at the cemetery named Raymond Abel. He founded interstate navigation. His son is approximately 85, 90 years old. He reached out to me saying, we have a picture of the Elizabeth Ann, and we'd love for her to come home. He was in Parker, Colorado. So that's this image right here. He also sent us a couple maritime licenses that his father had while he founded Interstate Navigation. So again, we're developing the trust of people who aren't even on Block Island. I mean, this guy's in Colorado. Adrian Mitchell for milk bottles. So I'll be talking a little bit more about Mitchell Farm and the milking operation. I love going to New York and Brooklyn. All the hipsters are talking about farm to fork and how new it is, and not realizing that, I mean, that for 10,000 years has been farm to fork. It's just the last couple generations that we got away from it. A quart of milk delivered to your house, 1965. Who wants to guess the price? Higher, more than a dime. 20 cents, you got it. Sue Ann Milliken, I want to thank her. She loaned us some objects connected to Fred Benson, who lived on Pilot Hill, of course. You're more than welcome to look at his baseball bat here. Pretty cool. We also have his golf clubs. Quick question for a fundraiser. Who would pay $100 to hit a golf ball with this? Okay, we got one taker. Okay, I'm just kidding. So we got baseball bat. We got the bat, or excuse me, we got the golf club there. And then I want to thank Patrick Cobb for loaning us a digital copy of Block Island in color 1947, which is just absolutely incredible. Again, with the software, I just searched 1947 to see what would pop up, and this image of Elizabeth Ann Evans popped up. So any image that we know is from 1947, again, that goes in the information, and then we can find photos or documents connected to that. So, Patrick, please correct me if I'm not saying this right. So this is Calico Hill, 1947. This is the Willis House, and the lady with the red hair is your mother. I'll narrate a little bit. This is about 4 minutes. And what's he wearing? That building in the background, that is where the beachhead would be. That's a Coast Guard station. That's the Historical Society. And I would say he's a Block Islander because he's got the hat. There's the house that's still there. "48 stars, of course, because Alaska and Hawaii are still territories in 1947. There's the ocean view. There's St. Andrews. There's the National. There's the Surf. There's the Gothic. There's the Historical Society. We don't have confirmation on the dog's name. I'm sorry. That seems to be, a lot of people are worried about that. The Gothic in the background. That would be the Coast Guard station that is beachhead now. Way in the back, that white dot, I think it almost has to be the mansion. I don't know what else it would be. Because the mansion burned down in 1963, so this is 1947. Again, that's where the Coast Guard station is. That's where the beachhead is. That's a Slavican property. A few may remember that. Here's Ocean Avenue. Again, there's no Seaside Market. There's no Kimberly's. There's no post office. So if you were there today, you'd see there's the Historical Society. All that's just a marshy field. 48 stars on a great flag. When I first saw this, I thought, man, that chicken's really calm. And then I realized it's cement. You know, it's not. It's a statue. It's not a real chicken. Very relaxed chicken. And that's your mother, Patrick? Yes. Car coming down Corn Neck Road. Pre-moped. I love the white walls on this car, the white wall tires. And look how the pond is, and you can just see all the way, you know, to Corn Neck almost, all the way up. One of them has to be. Yeah. Yep, on the left. Yep. Fantastic suicide doors on this car. The Yankee coming in. That's the Yankee. And then going down the hill. And that's it. Patrick, thank you for your trust. Thank you. Appreciate it. Questions, concerns, anything I missed?
So let me go back then quickly. I was speaking about the broad-billed caps and the fact that locally in my lifetime they were known as swordfishing caps. I had numerous myself. All the fishermen wore them as well as the farmers because that long brill protected their eyes from the glare of the ocean and the heat of the sun, as well as the glare coming off the fields. The second point I would make is with regard to the importance of showing these collections going forward now that we have them, not just to today's group. Having done the hard part of collecting it, what's important is to sustain those memories and those realities going forward 20, 30, 50 years from now. So it would be, obviously, it behooves us and succeeding generations to continue to support the Historical Society so it in fact will exist to make these presentations going forward. And so I was talking, before I got the microphone, when the microphone was given to me, I was talking about 1961 and the slideshows, of which there were about, seems like we did it one a month in the years, in the springtime and in the fall and in the winter. But all the local islanders at the time, it just had the greatest times just viewing all of these photographs on a projection screen and being able, trying to identify all of the people that were in these various scenes going back, some of them back before way back before my lifetime when my dad was a kid. So it just points to the importance of the work that Ben has been doing and is presenting to us tonight, and to be able to recall now that this same situation, this same kind of enjoyment and entertainment, if you will, and learning took place in 1961 in my lifetime. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the question was talking about how she first visited in 1954, right before Hurricane Carol, and are we building upon oral histories of people who remember events in the 40s, 50s, and 60s? The answer is yes. And then more importantly, the answer is yes, it can be digitized and it can be uploaded into our cataloging software. So, you know, we can transcribe that and we can break that down saying, okay, in minute 9, they talked about Hurricane Carol. Minute 12, they talked about Hurricane of 38. Even though they didn't remember it, they're talking about what their grandparents talked about. You know, the barometer just plunged. They knew something was happening in 38. So the short answer is yes. We're interviewing Edie Blaine. That was an amazing interview with her this past April. Asked her about 1938. She talked about the storms coming in. No one knows it's coming. The school just haphazardly figured out, okay, all you kids are in the north on Corn Neck Road, all you kids are on the west side, all you kids, are down by the southeast light. They were afraid to run the school bus because the wind was blowing so much, and they just divided those kids up, and parents just got the kids home. She talked about how, they had 17 feet of water in Providence. So she said how her sister was going to RISD, and they reported on the radio in Providence that Block Island was gone. But if you got 17 feet of water in downtown Providence, 400 people died on the mainland just in Rhode Island. So apparently a pilot came over and looking for Block Island and got lost, but he reported that it's gone. Barbara Gaspar, and about 15 years ago, told me the same story. Her sister was on the mainland. They told her Block Island is gone. So imagine being 8 or 9 years old, and your home is Block Island. Everything that you know, your entire family, and then this news hits you. It's gone. It's very, very powerful. Absolutely. I'm going to see if we can get the internet connection here. Thank you, broadband. So this is not public yet. The board will be deciding this fall. Here's all 77 objects connected to the Nancy Ann Church. We can, with this software, we can put some of it online. We can put all of it online. That's something the board's going to decide in the fall. But hypothetically, say you came in and said, I was here the day before Hurricane Carol. I go to all entries. As of this afternoon, we have 8,950. I go up here. I say, okay, or let's just say I'm just interested in 1954. "91 things connected in 1954. So whether it's, we just got this image in of Old Harbor right before the hurricane. So this is probably what Old Harbor looked like right when you came. And then you click on that. And all this is metadata, okay? And what that means, anybody can scan and upload, okay? That doesn't take a genius. But if you don't put in Carnegie 3 in this information over here, someone 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're not going to find that image. Does that make sense? So you gotta in the descriptions, you gotta have what's going on there. Saying the fish buildings that got knocked down, this is Old Harbor. You got to put all these different search terms. So this is 1954. What else do we have for 1954? Dedication of the State Beach. Newspaper clipping. So again, this is not ancient. This is a piece of paper from the 90s, from the Block Island Times. But what did they do? We got everybody's name. That's the important part. So we have the original photo somewhere. But I saw this saying, okay, this is important because we have the information. So Keith Lewis is in here. Adrian Mitchell's in here. 1970, it started. But if you go on the Block Island Library website, they've done a fantastic job of digitizing all the old newspapers. There's the Block Island Fly from the teens, the Block Island Beacon from the 70s and 80s. They got the Block Island Hooter. All that stuff's online, which is great. What else is happening in 1954? So here's the hurricane. At the airport, that's what the hurricane looked like. So, the guy had straps. We'll strap the plane down. We're good to go. Yeah, well, you know the rest of the story. The Royal is the harbor side, I believe, today. Am I correct on that? So hypothetically, a gentleman comes in, he's interested in the Royal. Connected to the Royal, we have, 78 things. Now, some of these aren't going to be the Royal. These are going to be maybe there's a Royal Imperial Plate Company or something. But here would be a picture of the Royal as a postcard. And then what's cool is that you can clip on that, and then you're getting a detailed scan. So Bob Willis, our president, what was great about, and I'll talk a little bit more about this on Thursday. What's great about this is you can be in Sri Lanka, okay? You can have if you have an IT line and you have access to this, you can work on the exhibit if you have access to it. So what I mean by that is Bob Willis is in Vermont. I'm in Arizona. Someone's on Block Island. We can all access this, and we can move things around saying, okay, we want to do an exhibit on the Hurricane of 38. This is what we have. This is where it is. If you want to dig into the archival folder and find it, you can, but you really don't have to anymore. We got it. Yes. Very good question. So, question on silencing who is not being seen. Very, very important question. The big thing is most of the crap around us came after the Industrial Revolution. So if you go to any museum, the vast majority of things are after the 1850s, 1860s. So we really don't have that many objects that are before that, and that goes for any institution. I mean, unless you specialize in colonial history or something. Most stuff, most people did not have that many pairs of clothes back in the day, whether you were in Block Island or South Dakota. Now I have more clothes than I know what to do with. So that's a very, very good question. In terms of, the Manichaeans, I know we want to work on, but the problem is, they didn't have a language, but we do have the artifacts we do have that we need to work on and get that developed a little bit better. So I'd like to work on the Manichaeans and how they are connected with the Narragansetts. I'd like to explore slavery, how that happened, looking at census records. But the town hall has done a very, very good job with all the deeds. So we really don't have that many legal documents, to be honest with you. Any other questions? Okay, good.
Well, that was amazing and a ton of fun, wasn't it? And of course, as we've said several times, there's a presentation next week at the Historical Society. Fantastic, Ben. Wonderful. The last announcement is next week at BIMI. Next Tuesday, we have Erica Serino, a photojournalist who's traveled around the world documenting plastic pollution in the oceans. She'll be here to talk about that, show you pictures and about her new book, Thicker Than Water, Solutions to the Plastic Crisis. I hope you'll join us then. See you next Tuesday.